Hello and welcome back to the New Dig Norfolk Gardener. Now, we haven't done a garden tour yet for May, so that's what we're going to be doing in this video. As I said in the jobs for the month, May is a time when growth really accelerates and things really push on. You've got lots of daylight hours, it's warm, and when it does rain, it does bring all these plants on. And there's no better examples than in the legume bed. The broad beans are really coming on and we've got pods everywhere. It's not going to be too long now before we'll be able to eat these. This is the Aquadulce. They're looking really good. The Sutton are a bit further behind, but there are small pods on them. They are now starting to come. And it's interesting by growing these two to see the differences in the plants. The Sutton, although much smaller, have an absolute abundance of flowers, whereas the Aquadulce appear to have less flowers, but lots more beans. They're longer pods for starters. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the harvests are, which thankfully will not be too long. The peas, I remember saying to you when they were down here only a couple of 3 weeks back that these will grow to 2 meters or more, 6 foot or more, and that they'll soon be up the top here. Well, you can see that they're about to here now, so they haven't got much further to go before we'll be thinking about pinching the tops out. The flowers are now starting to come, so again, it's not going to be too long before we see pods on these, and sometime in June, hopefully enjoying our first lovely sweet peas. Now the potatoes are looking good. The ones you're looking at this moment are Casablanca. They're a first early, and they should be ready for cropping at the beginning of June, maybe the second week of June. They are looking really good. And then beside those are the carrots that we sowed back at the end of March. They're coming on really nice. And then next door to those, the spring onions that were overwintered, which we are currently enjoying. And the overwintering onions, those that survived, they're now starting to bulb up. So again, in June, we'll have some nice onions to be able to eat. I've just had the mother of all showers descend down on us, so we had to stop for a few minutes. But it's going to be most welcome for these plants, I'm sure. These in this strip here are our second early potatoes, and they take a little bit longer to come to harvest than the first earlies. So as I said, the first earlies will be June, these will be July, and this is a variety called Charlotte, which we particularly like. Next door to those is where the Dig and No Dig trial is, and you see that coming on really well, and we should be enjoying cabbages and calibres in a few weeks' time. You can see that also within the Doug strip, still struggling to keep on top of the weeds. And then the last strip in this plot, the row furthest away, is some calibres. All these were planted about 2 weeks ago. And then next door to that I popped in some cauliflower. And then the row closest to us are some Pak Choi. Pak Choi are really good. They don't take long to come to a harvestable size whatsoever. The beetroot that we put in down these edges, they're doing okay. They're starting to swell up now, so we should be enjoying some nice beetroot. I don't know if we can get the camera in there, but you can see where it's swelling up. It's not going to be too long before we can enjoy some nice beetroot. There's another crack of thunder. We're about to get some more. So in this bed, this is where our main crop potatoes are, and they do take up most of that bed. They are actually now getting their flowers. The flower buds are there. So they're coming on nicely. Flowers are not always an indication that there are potatoes there yet, and if they are, they'll be really, really small. These have got a lot of growing to do. They'll flower and probably go to, make their seed before these are harvested. And then in front of those, this is where we put our follow-on spring onions. And you can see that they're now starting to come to a size now where it won't be long before we can harvest them. So these are the current spring onions that were overwintered, and we're slowly but surely working our way through those. They're giving us nice onion flavours for our meals now. But with the other ones that we just looked at that are now getting to a harvestable size, that's now telling me that I need to be sowing the next lot that will give us spring onions for August and September. Just in front of the main crop potatoes, if you remember, we sowed 2 rows of parsnips. As you can see, germination has been variable and a bit patchy, but they are now starting to come through. Now some came through not very long after they were sown, within a couple of weeks or so. Others hadn't, but I think the recent rains we've had has triggered them now, so it's now starting to fill in the gaps. And hopefully we have 2 nice rows of parsnips. So the greenhouse that you saw us plant up a couple of videos ago, that's all looking good. They're all settled in nicely. And of course the polytunnel, which we also saw, they've now received all their plantings. Next job for us in here now is to retrieve the canes from the top of the garden and get the plants staked. You can also see here that this is where all the propagation is taking place, and the Celeriac are going to go in very soon. The rest of those pak choy and Calabres we shall give away to our friends. Ours have all taken really well and we no longer need those. So here we are in the onion bed, and the onions are coming on nicely. You can see down here that they're starting to look like spring onions, which is indeed what they are, because they haven't formed their bulb yet. Now it won't happen to this clump, because in this particular clump there's only 4, and that's enough for me. But where I've got 5s and 6s, that's going to give us a nice bounty of spring onions again, as I thin them out to 4 or 5 onions per clump. Garlic, yeah, they're growing away. It's their time, and their harvest is fast approaching. The shallots have all split, and yeah, we're going to get a good crop from the shallots this year by the looks of things. They all seem to have at least 7 or 8 bulbs for us to be able to eat. So all your soft fruits are now starting to form now, and it's not going to be too long before we get some nice fresh fruit. You can see on this bush here that the gooseberries have all formed. This is only a young bush. We only put this in last year, but it's still going to produce us some gooseberries this year. We have our main plants, as you know, they're behind us, where you often see me on the chair. Those plants are about 3-year-olds now, and absolutely producing an abundance of gooseberries. Now this red currant bush, you can see, is absolutely awash with berries, which is good for us, because Mrs. W likes to make lots of red currant jelly, which we can use in our recipes, and a lot of our friends also really like to use it too, so we're able to give some away too. And the raspberries are now coming on. You can see that in fact there's one already formed there, so it's not going to be very long before we get some lovely fresh raspberries to eat. These are the summer variety raspberries. And then to follow on from those, we'll have the autumn raspberries, and we'll be enjoying their fruits from sometime in August onwards. And if we don't get any harsh weather, we do usually enjoy eating those right up to sort of back end of October. We've even had them into November. And our strawberries, they're looking really good. I can see that we're going to definitely be able to taste some strawberries. You can see the young strawberry forming in there. And one thing I do note from this particular variety, the flower petals seem to absolutely surround, as though it's trying to protect that fruit that's forming in there. Whereas the others, on this variety, and it's an unknown variety to us, we've long since forgotten the name of this one, but those petals don't quite surround it as much. It's quite interesting sometimes to see how different plants react on the things that they do. And if you remember, we planted these up in here, our old plants, plus over in the bed at the top where the rhubarb is, just in case we didn't get too many strawberries from our new no-dig strawberry bed. And that would be a disaster, because not only do I love eating lovely strawberries, but so do our grandchildren. So this is our blackberry. It's a thornless one, and you can see now that it's throwing out these new stems. Hello, Bobby. And as they sort of get up here, we shall push those to one side and tie those back. It's important that they're protected, because they're going to carry the fruit for next year's blackberries, whereas these ones, which were tied in earlier in the back end of last year, these will have the fruit for this year. And indeed you can see that the buds are now forming, so it won't be long before that's out in flower. And this really does produce a mass of blackberries. We're certainly never without blackberries. Now, also in this area of the garden, we have our apples and the plum tree. Now, the plum tree was already here. It's many, many years old, so I have no idea what variety it is, but it's certainly always produced plums every single year. And you can see the blossom's gone over and the plums are now starting to form. And then our apple trees, we did put these in. So you can see the blossom's gone over and the apples are starting to form. So we're going to get some apples. As I say, this is a cooker. Variety was Grenadier. And you can see with the eating apple much more clearly, it's forming lots of apples. And this is a Cox's Orange Pippin. So I tend to keep these trees quite low, so when we prune them, we don't let them get very big at all. For the majority of the time there is only myself and Mrs. W here, so we don't need many apples. We've got lots of fruit that we can enjoy at various times of the year, so yeah, really everything's coming on really well in the garden in May. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour around our garden and seeing how things are going. Do let us know in the comments below how your garden is going. Are you finding, like us, that everything has just really taken off this month and put on lots of growth? One of the things I suspect for that is that we haven't seen any late frosts, touch wood. So we haven't seen any frost in the month of May, and I think that's enabled all of the plants to really come on. You know, the nights really haven't got very cold at all, so they've all thrived from that. We shall see you on the next video.